let's talk, because you love this 4-day work week. Obviously, it'll never work. It's not going to happen. Discuss.
Listen to you, Mr. Negative Nelly over here.
Okay, let me set the scene properly. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying I think in some roles, either the horizon is longer than a month. So let's say my role is going to be difficult for me to say I made a change that's measurable this month versus this quarter. And for someone like Romain, it's like, what would we judge you on that is as challenging as a person in that support team or in that sales team or whatever, right? So response. Welcome to Insights as a Service. My name is Brendan Ritchie. This time I'm going to tell you who I am, I've just done that, but where I work. I'm the Chief Customer Officer at Lightwire, and this episode is all about recruitment in the technology sector, which is not something we've done before. So I feel that given the last year or so, it's extremely likely that this is going to add value to people in the MSP and telco sectors. To help me do that, I've got Dean Ellis, who is right there. He is the head of recruitment in the technology space. I wanted to say technology recruitment manager, but I screwed that up. Anyway, with Beaumont People is the key part. Hello, Dean. How are you?
Yeah, good, Brendan. Thanks for having me along. I have to say, long-time listener, first-time caller, so very happy to be here.
Allegedly. Yes. I'll hit you with some questions later to test that. I did plan on doing a far better intro than that, but I screwed it up. But look, let's just do the one take and keep going. Okay, look, let's set you up as the subject matter expert that you are. Tell us a little bit about your experience in the recruitment sector, specifically with reference to the technology space.
Great. Well, I've been in recruitment for 3.5 years. I am the practice lead at Beaumont People, so that means I actually built out the function of technology recruitment at Beaumont People. We're a 25-year young, recruitment firm, head office down in Sydney. We've got 4 offices across country, so we're pretty much in every state of Australia. My role has grown substantially since I joined. I love technology. I came from technology, 10 years in the space originally, and that's why they selected me to build out the function. I'll be honest, I laughed when they offered me the job. I said, never heard anything good about a recruiter. I don't want to do this. However, now 3.5 years later, can't imagine being anywhere else. I specialise in managed services recruitment, so that's my niche. My background was managed services, so why not work with what you got?
At what point do you find MSPs typically get interested in working with a recruiter? Is there a size or just a difficulty level that they've faced?
There's probably 2 sizes. There's your micro level, so those that are maybe 5 to 10 staff who don't, the owner is usually the managing director and doesn't have time to locate staff. So that's when they'll normally tap on my shoulder and ask me, who do we know? Outside of that, it's generally probably the slightly larger organisations, 50 plus, who again, they might have a large team, but their attraction strategy isn't aligned with what they want to attract. So I go in and consult and support them on that side of things.
So it's not just about getting a candidate. It's about, okay, how do you actually keep the candidate, set yourself up to attract the right people, etc.
Yeah, we're big on culture. For me, because I come from the space, it's really important to be aligned and have the same values as the organisation that I'm working with, because it's my brand. On the line, effectively, if I'm going to put a candidate in, say, Lightwire, for example, I want to make sure they're going to be looked after. I don't want someone that's going to hang around for 6 months. We want you to have a long-standing relationship with that candidate and employee for 2 to 3 years.
Right. Okay, fair play. All right, well, that's a solid plug up front for Beaumont People. So let's dive into setting the scene. We all know what happened during COVID. There was the ramp up that salary inflation through the roof, the high turnover of staff, or at least a lot of staff leaving for higher paid roles, smaller organizations struggling to keep pace with that wage growth. Since then, let's talk about, say, the last 6 months. What have you seen within the industry, if there's some sort of a trend that you could refer to?
Look, it's been an interesting. If I go a little bit further than 6 months.
Over the last 6 months is the limit.
6 months done. Yeah, okay, we'll wind back the clock a little bit.
Okay.
For the last 12 months, it's been quite interesting in the market. I've seen a lot of candidates leave their role because they saw this shiny paycheck and they're like, oh my God, I'm going for the higher pay. But once they got into the role, I saw that a lot of them came back to me because they actually weren't equipped to fulfill the duties. So either they didn't pass their 6 months probation because they actually couldn't produce the, let's call it a 100K worth of work. They couldn't produce it, so they came back and said, okay, I need to go back to a level 2 or I need to go back to a level 1 role. If we're looking outside of that to software engineers, that was an interesting play as well. We saw a 25% increase in their salaries across the board. So a junior going by 25% from $75,000 to nearly $100,000, and that's just ridiculous. We saw that grow. It's dropped back down to 15% now, so we've kind of stabilised. But when it comes to businesses who couldn't attract or couldn't pay those levels of salary, we saw a big shift in them looking at, like I said, EVP, like what else could they offer? What else can we offer a candidate? Maybe if it's not financial remuneration, what else can we offer?
That's really interesting. The real wages growth there. So if essentially wages have gone back, not all the way, but a fair amount of the way from where they started, and at the same time inflation's been up at 6-7% year on year for probably better part of 2 years, you've really got a situation where we're kind of back to the starting blocks or nearabouts in terms of actual purchasing power.
Yeah, well, 5% in front, and that's about it. As in, we're really not ahead of the game as we'd like to be.
That's grim, eh? That's not
sad.
That's great. Okay, so I guess if I'm a glass half full guy, inflation seems to be coming under control. That may or may not have an impact on wage growth. Where do you see both the talent pool going in the next 6 months, wage expectations going in the next 6 months? Let's start with those two, and anything else you want to throw in the mix.
Yeah, the good question, because I get asked this regularly, honestly, and I read a lot of reports from consultancies that do, that literally look at the market and map the market to find out what people are wanting. And just before the end of financial year this year, I got a report that said 72 or 73% of candidates or employees that are in paid work right now, if their increase of their salary isn't in line with the CPI, with the inflation, they're going to start looking for a job. Yeah. And I can tell you right now, my candidate pool has grown. And what's that saying? That's saying that those that are in the power of doing salary reviews haven't listened to the market and maybe haven't increased their salary as much as the employee would want. And I can tell you right now that I have people on my books that have said, hey, Dean, I'm okay. I'm ready now. When you have the right role, don't forget me. And those people weren't looking for jobs 12 months ago.
Interesting. I wonder if New Zealand versus Australia, right? You look at net migration. So New Zealand's got, I don't know if they're lucky, 30,000 odd net migration. Australia, I think 400,000 over the last 12 months, or at least forecast for this calendar year, I think, making both those stats up. But I feel pretty confident that I've read them somewhere, so they could well be true. Surely that, depending on how skilled that labour coming in is, but I think, based on Australia's rules, immigration rules, they're likely to be quite highly skilled. That must be part of what's fueling the candidate pool here, I would assume. Are you seeing in New Zealand that it's a different picture, or do you guys have much insight over there?
Look, we don't have a huge amount of insight to what's happening in the New Zealand market, but I do have a lot of insight into those that are coming from New Zealand to Australia. And the amount of candidates that I have now that are reaching out pre-moving, saying, hey, Dino, look, I'm looking to move. This is my level of role. This is what I'm looking for. Can you give me some market insight? Had a really interesting conversation with a CTO just earlier this week who did the right thing, is what I'm going to say. He actually called me first and said, look, I'm not going to apply for this role that you're recruiting at the moment, but I want to know what's happening in the market and to see whether I'm a fit. And we had a really robust conversation around the why. And for him, it was an emotional reason for moving here. But if you're moving to Australia for your own migration, you want to increase your salary, or you want to move to Australia because you want a different work-life balance, give a consultant within a recruitment space a call and have a chat around what's happening in the market before you jump in. Like, we definitely need skilled people here. And Australia, New Zealand, don't worry about the transfer there, because we don't need visas. It's all good. Like, we're good to go.
Something a lot of people love coming to the Gold Coast. What do you see the professional services sector like on the Gold Coast now?
It's growing. It's growing. If we reflect 5 years ago when I first moved to the Gold Coast, it was not as robust as it is now.
Oh, man, I got here 17 years ago, and it was like, if you didn't work in hospo, or I don't know, nope, that's it. You really didn't have a lot of option, or drive to Brisbane. Obviously, that was a big part of it. But
well, and no one wants to do that anymore. That travel that commute an hour is no longer an option. It's not on the table for people anymore. Since COVID's happened, we've got this whole new view of what a work-life balance looks like. So if you're not working from home, or your office isn't within 30 kilometres of your house, you're probably not going to take that job, if I'm really honest. Or if you do take the job, you'll be gone in 6 months. I can guarantee you.
Yeah.
But sorry, back on your question.
If you could.
Look, definitely. The professional
That's how
services
this whole thing
space.
works. About I ask the question, you stick the script. No,
I'll take it wherever we're going to take it.
Okay.
Look, the professional service space now, what I'm seeing is like, I'm actually embedding myself more in the local market. I've spent the last 2.5 years working in the Sydney market. I've seen the growth here in the Gold Coast. So if I'm coming back here to make some money, I guess that's telling you a little bit, isn't it? That it is growing. There's some really great businesses here now, and everyone. We have a lack of talent, so if we can keep bringing talent to the area, we're just going to continue to explode.
I feel like one thing, not to make this a Gold Coast focused episode, but I do feel like it has got way less transient. Even when I first got here, I'd play rugby. I played rugby, and every sort of 1 to 2 seasons, the team would completely change because that'll be from somewhere else that eventually go get home. And now people are here to make it home, and that's probably the biggest. Maybe those people, because they're staying here, they're bringing those jobs, that employment, that knowledge with them, and setting up that base. That's sort of how it feels anyway. And I know so many people, probably like yourself, who have moved in from major centers who are just essentially forcing their businesses to set up a location here to retain that talent. Yeah.
This is home. People want this to be home. Like, who wouldn't want to live in a place? And I know, again, not making a Gold Coast based episode here, but who wouldn't want to live in a place where it's 30 degrees most of the year? It's gorgeous. It's a gorgeous location to live. There's a beach, within 5 kilometers of pretty much any housing around here, and the people are nice.
Sorry, that's something everybody who lives on this side of the Gold Coast Highway says, right? People out in Pack Pines, Oxford going, nope, liar. But hey, you check your privilege, that's fine.
White privilege guy.
The guy from Tweed. Okay, cool. All right, but no, fair point. It's a beautiful place to live, and why wouldn't you make it home? But back in the day, pre-working from home being normalized, not so easy. But that's cool. Okay, let's talk about. You were telling me that this is prior to the podcast, that smaller MSPs can struggle because employees see bigger firms as a security play. Able to navigate tough times. I guess more room for advancement potentially as well, and maybe having to wear like less hats. So being on call less often, shared load, more specialization. How real is all of that? How much of a perception sort of falsehood is there?
Well, look, you mentioned earlier around the financial crisis, the looming financial crisis. We're hoping we're going to come out of that. That's pushing the word security around the market a lot, and security to individuals can be quite different. But what I hear is security means I work in an organisation where they can ride out the tough times. All right. Now, a larger organisation can ride out the tough times for a lot longer. We all went through COVID. Probably most of us can remember we went through the GFC. Those businesses were larger. Yes, there was a bit of descaling, but it normally came from the top. Yeah. It's in descaling the kind of top end of town, not the BAU staff. That's what people are looking for. They do want that security. I've seen it more and more over the last few months, people calling me going, can you get me into government? Can you get me into government? We want the security. Like, I really want the security. And they're coming from like pretty well-known brands as well, still wanting security. So I would hope that over the next 6 months that starts to ease a little bit. But the smaller MSPs, one thing I will say, yes, there's that security aspect, but in a smaller MSP, the variety that you get, you're not going to get that anywhere else. Like I do love me a smaller MSP because that same adage you said about wearing all the hats, you can become extremely skilled. You can become an extremely skilled generalist technician, sysadmin, within that space that you can't really do within, say, a larger MSP where you're sitting in a pod where you're only a level 1, and that I guess the growth in those spaces. So level 1, you might stay there for 2 years. That's a waste. You shouldn't be a level 1 for 2 years. You should be a level 1 for 6 months. Then you should be moving to a level 2. Yeah.
So does that depend though then what the progression plans or the cadetships, like in our company we have, for example, the level 1s, they go straight into a year 1, year 2 cadetship plan to give them exposure to other parts of the business. Then they pick a stream, whether it's network engineering, whatever. Does it then depend on how well the company you're working on has set up those sort of things, whether you can go from being a specialist role to a subject matter expert with obviously then the salary that comes with that?
Look, I think it is very much what you said. Look, bring it down to how well that business has set up the cadetship. I really don't think that someone who's coming in from, say, either doing a diploma or I don't know, let's call it a master's or some type of BA, comes into an organisation, being an MSP, and does a level 1, after doing 12 months, they know what they're doing. As in you're just holding someone back. And if you're not going to promote them, there's another business that's going to take them. Because MSP space, just remember, it's a very small industry. And if you have 1 year experience in MSP, everyone wants you, and everyone's tapping them on the shoulder going, hey, or everyone's calling me and going, Dean, can you find me that candidate?
Yeah.
I want someone with MSP experience.
I wish I had I was up at IT Nation, the ConnectWise event last week at Cairns, and there were a lot of interesting slides showing MSP growth rates and sort of top quartile, bottom quartile, and there is still 25% that are going backwards over the last 12 months, which is, I think I'm remembering that right. Hopefully someone won't have to fact check that, but I guess it just shows the impetus that you can't really typically promote people unless you're going forwards, unless you're hemorrhaging people at the top end, and then you're putting potentially not quite ready people up. That's something I wanted to come back to, actually. You mentioned before about how some people who have skipped jobs have gone, actually, I couldn't quite deliver on that. It reminds me of another entity I worked for where they had a habit of going, if I give you this title, you're suddenly capable of being that thing. If I call you senior network engineer when really you're probably a junior, well, I call you that, so therefore you are. It's sort of a build them and they will come mentality. Do you still see that a bit where, particularly when skills are not widely available, that people, companies are prepared to put people in roles that maybe, they're not quite ready for, and then put a lot of pressure on them to deliver at that level just because they're called that now?
Funny, yeah, I have seen a bit of that. I saw a bit of that last year, actually.
Okay.
I've actually done a lot more conversations with those organisations to bring them back to, let's actually look at skills matching, opposed to giving someone a title. I understand that there's value when it comes to employing someone to give them a higher title if that's what they're driven by. All right, so for example, Dean Ellis, I'm a recruitment manager right now, right? And if an organisation came to poach me and they go, oh, Dean, we're going to give you the same money. Look, I'm not really interested, all right? Hang on. But I'm going to give you the general manager title. Maybe suddenly I'm interested because I'm getting a title change, even though responsibility is the same, because responsibility doesn't have to be the same across every organisation. If we bring that back to managed services, you can give someone a higher title. Don't expect them to do the higher work if they're unskilled. Like make sure you're skills checking and skills matching those candidates, or both of you will be in a world of hurt and your retention will go out the window, and no one's going to be happy. No one wins when retention goes out the window. It costs too much money.
Yeah, for sure. How well do you see people do those skills sort of matrices that within a business go, this level of capability equals this tier of pay or this title or whatever? Does that get done very well?
25%. 25% do well.
Yeah.
And those 25% of MSPs across the country that do it well, they actually have a process. They actually have, like you said, a matrix where they actually understand, cool, where in their screening process, they're checking off where this person sits in relation to the role title itself. Government organisations do it really well. They do it really well. It's very, very ingrained in their process for that.
Structure.
Oh, they love
it.
They love a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
I do it for my candidates. I know where they sit. In terms of whether they're certified, and I'll get them to self-rate, and then I'll rate. But I always ask a client, I've done this rating, here's what I believe they look at. I want you to do a skills match as well. As in, I would expect every client to do their own skills match, because there could be, I've been out of the technical space for 3.5 years. I haven't done a certification for 3.5 years, so things have changed.
Yep.
But it needs to be done, and more businesses should be looking at doing it as well.
Fair enough. I know you love talking about culture. What have you... Well, I guess, maybe define culture, I guess, is always a good starting point from where you sit. And then second follow-on question, is there a sweet spot for MSPs where size and culture kind of form that Venn diagram perfectly overlaps?
There's no perfect. But what I can say is, you've asked me to define culture. What I will say is, from spending so much time in the MSP, I'll tell you what culture is not. Culture is not a pizza party.
Yes,
tell you right now, we all know that, every organisation says, hey, come and join our organisation. We've got a pizza, pizzas on Fridays, beers in the fridge, we've got beer on tap. Who cares? No one wants beer on tap anymore. Like, we've got bigger things and more exciting things to deal with, like connection. So people connecting.
And we're all getting old, and weight is an issue. So less beer, possibly.
Yeah. Come and have a beer, then go for a run.
Yeah. What a mix.
Look, culture, sorry, Brendan, but culture, I guess, to me, it's a really passionate place for me. And something that I have noticed is that the MSP industry, and I'm going to talk Australia, probably more focused in Australia, they think they've got culture, but they haven't actually done anything to do with culture. They say they've got culture because they've got people that want to work for them, because they've got a brand that's known. But if you're going to laugh someone out of your organization, because they've resigned, like that is not culture. If you've got a culture where people talk about one another, like that's not culture. Culture is where you want to go to work, where you want to wake up, you want to spend time at work. There's an adage that I talk about, which is if you had an uncomfortable bed, all right, you went to sleep, woke up, you had a sore back. Like the first thing you're going to do that weekend, you're going to go buy a new bed. All right, that's the same with people in their jobs these days. It's like if we're uncomfortable and we're not feeling that we're getting a good night's sleep, for example, like we're out of there. Like there's so many jobs on the market right now. Like you can move so quickly, and if you haven't got a culture, so I think of culture as I guess the key pillar to keeping people retained in work. Then you're behind the eight ball, and your retention, it's just going to be a winding door. Good for recruiters, but not for an organization. I wouldn't work with that organization. Good for some recruiters, not good for me. I won't work with someone that's just a rotating door. It's a waste of everyone's time.
Yeah, that was always the probably going back a long time now, but that idea that you have someone really well placed in your organization by a recruiter, and then 2 years they tap that same person on the shoulder and go, "Hey, I got another offer for you." That's I think the fear of I don't know if it's still a thing. I don't know.
Ask the question.
Yeah,
is it
sure.
a thing?
Is that a thing?
It's not a thing. Like,
Really?
okay, well, not a thing for my organization.
Okay.
Ethical recruitment is a thing.
Okay.
And ethical recruitment is not going back to your candidates and asking them if they want to leave the organization you just placed them in. Like, let's be honest, that doesn't create a relationship. Like, if I put a candidate in your business, all right, and then 2 years later I come and tap that candidate on the shoulder, take them out, you don't know this, all right, and then it comes back to you from the market that I've done that, how are you going to feel about me?
I guess it's the thing. Who's your customer, the candidate or the employer? And cool.
Yeah.
Cool. That was not the question I thought I was going to ask, but there we are. All right, cool. Let's, what should we talk about next? I want to talk about working visas. I guess the thing here is there are high, as I mentioned before, net migration in Australia, quite high, 400,000, a lot of people. Presumably a lot of those would need some sort of a special skills visa or working visa or something. How difficult is it for MSPs and telcos to utilize those? What should they know if they're interested in exploring that?
Cool. That's enough questions. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Cool.
No, okay. What do you need to know? Educate yourself first of all. Reach out to a migration agent and have a discussion around what the rules for each visa is. But don't be afraid of the visa. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of contractors either. So for example, a candidate comes to me, Dean, I got a visa until 2024, December 2024. Like that's a long time. That's like 18 months from now. If I call you up or one of the MSPs up and say, hey, I've got this candidate that are available for the next 18 months, they have all the skills you're looking for, give them a go. If they don't work out, they don't work out. But you can offer them a contract which aligns with their visa. Literally all you need to do is every 6 months, you need to jump onto the Vivo website. I can't remember what it is, vivo.org.au or something, and run their visa number, and it will tell you, hey, this person still has rights to work in Australia. And you just do that every 6 months. That covers you as the employer, but the candidate should also be doing that. So the employee should also be doing that because their visa. If they screw up, they're the ones getting deported.
Imagine like anything, once they're working, once you've got a relationship that you can look back on as part of any future application, you're going to be much better placed, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Once you've worked a little bit, once you've had one person in your organization that sits on that visa structure, you'll become more confident as an employer to have more of these people come in, and all of a sudden, like, you're not lacking skills because those people are available. But unfortunately in Australia, we're not educated a lot on this visa process. So people are a little bit scared, a bit reluctant to take the visa person on. I'm happy to bring, I do temporary recruitment support. So that means that I can provide someone to an MSP on a per hour basis, and I take all the risk. So I do all the checking. I just literally put the person in there. It might be a 6-month contract, but I take the risk on because they're my employee, and I'm really happy with that because I know the process. But I'm also happy to educate others that are looking to bring candidates in or employees in. If they'd like to have a chat with me, they can give me a call.
Okay, fair play. I haven't given you any forewarning of this question, so good luck.
Great, fantastic.
I'll preface it. So we had Telstra a while back say, we're bringing the jobs back, which is bringing people back offshore, onshore. Macquarie Telecom had a great little brand campaign, which was basically on the same billboard as it swapped between digital ones. It's like, we never left, which I thought was clever, right? In the industry, I've had conversations recently with people who are almost entirely, offshored, employing them directly through a BPO or whatever, but they're all in the Philippines predominantly. have you seen a particular shift in the technology sector in Australia towards or away from, or is it really just almost a life cycle thing where each business will go through stages for some reason?
Look, I think it comes down to who the leader is in the business. So who's the top dog? Who's pulling the strings, and are they financially driven? So financially driven, they're going offshore straight away. Bang, easy question. If they're relationship driven, and they're, I guess, and I'm not saying that an offshore business can't provide a relationship, but if they are relationship focused and they want that, I guess, focused on their NPS or their customer satisfaction, those people, they actually really focus on having a local base for their, whether it be level 1, level 2, level 3 support. I've seen it work really well on both sides of the fence, and I don't have a preference personally. Actually, professionally, if I had a preference, of course I want them to be local because I want to recruit them.
Sure.
But in saying that, I've seen it work really well both sides. Locally here on the Gold Coast, if we speak here, what's worked really well is local, because locals love locals. Locals want to talk to locals. I've seen a couple of campaigns that are about where the Australian telco, where the Aussie-based contact centres. All of our staff are here onshore, and here on the Gold Coast, that works really well. I don't know why. I think it's like, this is an old country town. It's like a big country town, and everyone wants to speak to someone locally. Very much a relationship-driven area, as you mentioned before. That sort of transient process has kind of left us here, and you have to know, like, and trust someone here. But before you're going to fork out money or have a chat with them.
I'm a big fan of, I guess, data-driven decisions, and so we've got a different part of our business. So we've got rural and we've got business, right? And the business side is Australia and New Zealand. The rural consumer stuff is North Island, mid-North Island of New Zealand. And we had a great period up until about 12 months ago when we were easily the best option in town. Now we've got a very strong competitor in Starlink, old Elon Musk, satellites, space lasers, whatever. It's wild. Yeah, yep. It's pretty incredible, to be fair to them. Good product. But what we've always thought is we've led with a lot of local. We've got our team based in Hamilton. The surrounding rural areas are where we're serving. People like to know that when they call in, you understand the street, the town, the hill, whatever they're looking at. When we did the research, though, I think in hierarchy, the things that would make them determine who they buy from were basically reliability, speed, price. And then local, where you are, was somewhere like 8th, And so we'd had this we're local, where you are, I think I even came up with the tagline. I definitely did come up with the tagline where it's like, rural broadband for here, sort of underlined. You don't have to say where here is, because we're there, you're there, we know, it's that space. That was the thinking, but it's like, no one gives a shit, Brendan, shut up. And so the thing for me is, as much as we talk about having a local, will that impact where they buy from? Is it just something they get pissed off with, but doesn't necessarily impact buying behavior? Don't know. Every consumer is going to be different. Every industry is going to be different, I'm sure. But it's just it's a fascinating thing where the other part, since now I'm talking, I can't stop, is where you've got, but it's a podcast, I guess that's okay, is you've got this concept of, well, if it's lower cost to have people employed overseas, does that enable you to be a price leader? Is that your whole value proposition, or are you value led because of a bunch of other reasons, and therefore customers are prepared to pay more, in which case you can afford to hire local and off you go? So no clear point there, just discussion.
What's the value proposition? I guess who do you want to be? I think the right question is, do you want to be the local guy? Do you want to be the cheapest guy or girl? For me, I don't want to be the cheapest person. I actually want to be the specialist. So that's my value proposition is, I know you, I know your industry, and I know your people. So why not work with me? Because I can tell you more about them than other recruiter who came from Brisbane, whatever. I know these people, so I want to be the specialist. I recruit in Sydney from my house in Tweed Heads. But why do people from Sydney come to me? Because I'm the specialist. I know the industry. I know the technology. They can take one flick at my LinkedIn and go, oh my God, this guy's been in tech for 10 years. I definitely know I feel like he'd be able to support me when I know nothing about tech. As in, they know nothing about tech.
I think the thing there then is whether you would offshore or onshore is really determines how commoditized the thing you're doing is. When it's quite unique per conversation, your conversation makes sense. Where it's like, hey, look, an internet connection is an internet connection, and the issues can only be within this range. Potentially, what you're talking about doesn't translate. So telco might be, well, we all know telco is very much going down the offshoring thing. Anyway, okay, total sidetrack. So I take all of that. Well, I don't take it back at all, but anyway, sidetrack.
That was
moving
fun.
on. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Cool. All right, next thing. Let's talk, because you love this 4-day work week. Obviously, it'll never work. It's not going to happen. Discuss.
Listen to you, Mr. Negative Nelly over here.
Okay, let me set the scene properly. I've been on record before. God, I don't know. Season 1 remain. I don't know. But I've basically said, look, love the idea, get where it can work, but I don't think it can work in our company for reasons I'll get to later. You love it. You are doing it, right?
I am.
Yeah.
And I love it. And I think it is probably the biggest value proposition for our organisation.
Okay, well, first of all, son of a bitch. But secondly, carry on.
Son of a bitch on a Friday by the pool with a pina colada, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, I hate you, but carry on. All right, so how does it work for you? Talk me through it.
Yeah, easy. Look, so it's very much productivity driven. So as in, I have to hit some, everyone in our organisation, whether they are a billing person or whether they are a accountant or a process-driven person, say back-end, I'm talking like admin, so on and so forth. They also have metrics that they have to work towards. And now you have to hit your productivity guidelines to unlock 4-day week. So if we talk about, say my role or any of the recruiters in our business, so you have to hit productivity guidelines. You have to connect with 25 businesses a week. So that might be your clients or new clients. You have to connect with them and have a robust conversation. You have to have 5 meetings and sit down and actually see whether there might be opportunity to work with each other. And ultimately, if you do that over a 4-week period, the outcome is that you make money. And that's just the way it works. And that money is a very defined figure. I look at it like you have to put a certain number of people into work. So literally I have to put 3 people into work a month and I get access to the 4-day week. And I think that's pretty cool. Like I help 3 people, then I get an extra day off. Now, if I don't do that the following month, I don't get access to it again.
Okay,
so
it's unlocked and so it's the month following. It's almost like a commission structure. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
So okay,
unlock and lock.
So talk me through how you've seen that work in the MSP space.
Great. So I'm currently supporting, well, not me, myself and Nikki Beaumont, so our CEO, are supporting a local Gold Coast-based managed service provider to implement this at the moment. And it is based on, say, number of tickets closed. So we look at the number of tickets that, say, said level 1, level 2 or level 3 should be working on. And we add a certain percentage to it. So if you can now hit 10% higher, that's one of your metrics. Tick. Your NPS score. So this is based on response, not only response, but also the actual level. So we want them to be at an 80% on an NPS. So NPS is your customer satisfaction score. We've all had that email come out with the 3 faces. Yeah. So we want a 50% response rate. So at least 50% of our people are responding to us.
What's industry standard, by the way? Because we get way less than that.
Yeah. Let's talk about it offline.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. But we're pushing the envelope. We're trying something different, and we really do want to. What this means for, say, that organisation is that help desk engineer is going to be having a conversation with that client, saying, "Hey, just so you know, feedback's really important to us.
I want my 4-day work week.
Yeah,
where is it?"
Well, they're not going to say that, but they're going to say, "Look, it's really important to us, and we're an organisation that strives to do better. And I'd really like you to please respond to the email that I'm going to send you now, and be really honest, and please provide any feedback." And the chances are that increases the response rate by 50% just by having that last little bit of the conversation. We all know when we're talking to Telstra and they go, there's going to be a review after this. Can you please stay on the line for 1 minute? If you've had a good experience, you're going to stay on the line and you're going to do that. All right. So that's another metric that we run by. So response rate, NPS, so customer satisfaction, and numbers of tickets closed. This can be expanded across different roles. So when we talk about engineers, so level 3 engineers, we're talking about projects. Okay. Time, length of project. What would we expect this project to length be? Let's say billable hours. So it's 20 billable hours. If we can close it in 18, so we can get onto the next project, that's a tick for that person as well. And we measure all these on a matrix, and at the end of every month, that COO then goes, great, cool. These 3 people have unlocked, the operation to move into 4-day week. However, we only have 2 slots for, because it's a smaller MSP, we only have 2 slots, so we're going to rotate them.
Okay.
So someone will get it for the first, 2 people will get it for that month, and then the 3rd person will get it for the next month. And they just keep rotating that around. It's working. It's working at the moment. I'd like to see it work better. I'd like to see more MSPs reach out and just have the conversation about how it might work. Like the salespeople, we know it can work for salespeople. They're easy metrics to measure.
Yeah.
But our help desk guys and our operational guys that are on the front line, they also need something that attracts them to the organisation. And if 4-day week is the cherry that's attracting them, let's find a way to make it work. It's working for these guys. I'd like to help more people implement it?
We used to have we call it Lightwire Day because we're super original, where we had, I think we gave 8 to 12, I can't remember exactly, it was either 8, 10 or 12 days a year extra paid leave. And we stopped doing it and replaced it with a well-being payment, I think $1,000 a year or something. And we did that, I think, because it moved away from its initial thing where, hey, look, you can take a day a month where you just need a bit of extra time. It could be you need to get shopping done, you need to be with your kids, you just are desperately tired or whatever, right? So there's an extra day, but people would sort of save them up and use 5 at once, and the managers wouldn't stay on top of it, or it got really hard to go, no one was tracking it, it got hard to sort of keep track of, I didn't use that one, I didn't end up taking it, I'm using it 2 now or whatever. And it became a real entitlement thing. It wasn't really, it stopped being a benefit and just an expectation, and the admin around it got horrific.
That's a real shame.
Yeah, it sucked. So, and we can probably learn a lot from that and go back to it. But what we're doing at the moment seems to be working pretty well. And around wellbeing allowance and the clothing allowance and bit of extra time off, and a lot of flexibility.
When did that change back to the allowance? When did you change back to the allowance?
I want to say, was it still in play when you came on? No, Lightweight, that was before you. So it's been at least 2 years. Yeah, so at least 2 years.
Are you asking your staff whether they still want that or whether they want to go back to having that extra day? Have you asked them?
I think we just strictly said no questions.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm joking. No, I actually don't know. I'll probably get in trouble for even talking about this. Danielle's going to slap me on the wrist or something ahead of HR.
So Danielle, thanks for having me.
Yeah, cool. Maybe it might be better. Maybe next time, tell you what we should do is you can come back and do a completely anonymized case study for us on 4-day work week for MSPs, and I can come back and do a non-anonymized review of why we stopped on Lightwire Day. If I'm allowed to. But my key question, I guess, was going to be, how do you make sure that there's not a huge administrative overhead from a management perspective, that entitlement doesn't sneak in? And I guess the third one is, if you need bums on seats and, you have 2 people a month, even if it's limited to that, how do you ensure that, your salary overheads don't grow or your customer experience diminish by introducing something like this?
Great. Really good question, because what we get asked pretty regularly, and I can say this from experience. We have so when it comes to bums on seats and having people available for our clients, we have a 4-day week roster. So in each team, so let's say there's 4 people in every team. Example, on the tech team, I can take my 4-day week if no one else is taking their 4-day week. Mm-hmm. But if, say, one of my other staff, so the software recruiter, she wants to take her 4-day week, I can't take my 4-day week on the same day. So we actually have to manage that to ensure that we have coverage, because, say, I can do software recruitment, she can do software recruitment. We can both have the same conversation, but the other staff maybe can't. So because I can have the same conversation, I need to be available when she's not available. So it's a compromise scenario. You can't bank these things. You can't bank them. They're turned off. As soon as that, if I don't take my 4-day week this week, I can't take 2 next week. As in, that's not how it is. It's not an entitlement. Like, it's a benefit. And we really need to make sure that those conversations are being had from the first moment that someone joins an organization, that we talk about benefits versus entitlements. Like, entitlements are government related entitlements. Like, you have to have 11% superannuation. That's an entitlement for you. It's like a human right, for example, and you get 4 days.
People in New Zealand, that's not relevant to you at all. Sorry.
Yeah, I can't remember. What do you guys call it?
I think KiwiSaver is
KiwiSaver.
Up to 4%.
Sorry about that,
contribution. Yeah, it's not quite there.
Come over to Australia. I hope you get a job.
Yeah.
But then we've got that conversation needs to be continually had internally. So it comes from your management team, making sure that everybody knows that this is a benefit, not an entitlement, and benefits are related to your output. We will give you as much as you give us effectively. And that needs to be the conversation that's happening. So I forgot the other question you asked.
What did I say? Basically the making sure that you don't have additional staff costs or overheads, and the customer experience isn't diminished. And I think by saying that 4-day rotating bit is kind of part of the answer.
Well, the NPS is the thing that really talks about that. Like, part of your 4-day week. So for us is NPS score. Like, if my NPS score drops, that means my customer satisfaction drops. Do you think I'm going to be able to put 3 people into work every month if my customer satisfaction drops? I can't. And it really needs to be self-driven. So for everyone that has access to 4-day week, whether it be at Beaumont People, whether it be at Lightwire, whether it be at NAB, for example, everybody that is operating on the 4-day week model has to be responsible for their output themselves. So this is not just a business brings it in and says, hey, we're going to do this. It's like, hey, if you want this, you need to work with us. Like, this is still new. Like, I think it was somewhere in Northern Europe when they brought this out. It was new, it was exciting, and the productivity went through the roof. When Beaumont implemented this, I know for a fact, like, our productivity, like, we had the year that we implemented this, we had our best year. Right. And it was because everyone really wanted to wanted the access to it.
Don't
but wanted to
ruin
do more.
this, guys. Make this work.
Let's do well. Let's do well.
That's so good though. But that's great, and that's the exact thing. It's like, hey, we all win if we nail this. let's freaking nail it.
Yeah. And it's a continual shift as well. Not a continual shift, it's a continual conversation where if it's not working, how do we make it work? This measurement isn't working, but is there a different measurement we can have? Some measurements you can't get rid of. For example, if it's a sales-based role, if you're not making money, how can you expect to have a 4-day week? I'm sorry, you just don't get given it because you're a nice person. As in
it does get harder in some. So, okay. Couple of things that are coming to mind here. One is, I really like the idea. I mean, we're a company that when I turned up to Lightwire, there was a gym at head office with a full-time PT, and everyone got 1 or 2 PT sessions during work hours, free of charge. Clothing allowance. There was what else did we do? We've got a lot of HR consultants who would be given these 360 reviews. A lot of money spent on helping people improve and coaching to help them in their roles, and just a huge training budget per person. All this good stuff, right? So conceptually, definitely companies like how do we make people love working here? How do we, like you said, get excited about coming into work and really want to work for each other because they're all in this sort of rowing the boat in the same direction, blah, blah. Where I've kind of got stuck is how do we not have winners and losers? Because if you're doing it based on certain metrics for a role, you've mentioned support desk, get it. Sales, get it. Marketing gets harder. You can't necessarily say
marketing, click open rate for EDMs, all those things can be measured. Look at the measurables for marketing. Sorry.
Okay, some. So old mate here. So I'm going to pick on Romain, right?
Romain, hey.
Create, a couple of podcasts a month, 14 snippets, 3 videos, and okay, we'll talk about it. I mean, unintended consequences are a risk, right? What if you guys, hey, I did my videos, they're shit, but I did them. See you Monday. It's like, cool. So
I want to see a 15% increase in views, please, Romain.
So there's the next thing. Okay, so what if you go, hey, my metric for you is how many views we get based on the quality? Well, what type of views? So I worry about, is it the actual target market? So I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying I think in some roles, either the horizon is longer than a month. So let's say my role is going to be difficult for me to say I made a change that's measurable this month versus this quarter. And for someone like Romain, it's like, what would we judge you on that is as challenging as a person in that support team or in that sales team or whatever, right? So response.
Yeah, cool. So can you look at what the outcome would have been and what activities get you there? All right. So for example, back to what I was saying, 25 calls per week, get you 5 meetings. All right. So we know that's the metric that we can measure. If we look at your job, what gets you to that 3 monthly outcome and break it down. Are you doing the activities that's required? So measure the activity, not the outcome initially, to see how does it reflect. If it's working, once you get to the 3 month mark, you're going to know. You'll know. You already know in your job whether it's going to work, and that's what you measure. You measure the activity that gets you to the outcome. If you're not getting the outcome in the end of it, look, we're going to look at changing the model. Yep. But I really think breaking it down. So for Romain, for example, in the marketing space, we can look at click to views or open rates or a number of visitors to a site, but number 2 visitors site is nothing. Like, are they going to the right page? Let's look at that. Have we got an increase in that? What's driving them in that direction? Let's measure that. And let's measure, are they coming from LinkedIn? Are they coming from Facebook? I don't know what other platforms you guys use, but are they coming from those directions? Do we want to have a strategic view that we want to increase that from those directions? That's what you start measuring them on. And it can continually change, but do it in conjunction with the person. So your boss may say, cool, I'll sit down with you. What do you think the measurements might be? Brendan, what would you like to see the measurements be? How can we measure this together? And what are the consequences if we don't get there? Let's be really robust about that conversation. I have it all the time with my GM. She says, Dean, good, you've made the money, but you've not made the calls. As in you've put people in work, but you haven't made the calls. What does that mean for you next month? It's like, cool, I need to pick up my act. Maybe I don't have 4-day week this week because I didn't actually do what you asked me to do.
Does it create conflict in those conversations at all, or is it that it's so for you guys at least, it's so cut and dry whether the metrics were met or not that there is no emotion in it?
No emotion, mate. It's a benefit. It's not an entitlement, and I
Okay.
think that's what you get stuck on. It's like, I'm not entitled to this. Like, I joined an organisation that has this amazing benefit that what I need to do to get that, unlock that benefit, is to do my job and do my job really well.
That's I have to tell Romain that we're friends with benefits, not entitlements. It's a difficult conversation, but I think it's starting to get there. Anyway, moving on. We can probably cut that. Anyway. I love the cut. So the other thing I was going to say there is, actually, at Beaumont People, is it a universally applied benefit, or is it once you reach a certain tier or position that it becomes available?
Yeah. So once you pass probation, so
Okay,
6 months in the that's it. That's the only. Once you pass probation, every single role in the organisation, whether it be a marketing function, admin function, C-suite function, everyone gets access to it. And it literally, the only metric is to start the process is to hit your 6 months, and then you need to hit your activity guidelines, and they are called guidelines because there is a bit of management discretion to some of them. I don't know how we would even discuss that. Probably not appropriate for this, but we'll move on.
Okay, fair enough. How my only last question there on this, because I think it's been a pretty good discussion on the old 4-day work week, is could you see it working in a way where company A says, hey, once you reach, whether it's level 2 on the support team, or you reach key account director, not an account manager, or some level of seniority starts to take in that benefit because maybe there's the additional capacity at that level, or the real-time availability becomes less important from a customer perspective, or something like that? Or do you think it would be too hard to differentiate the haves and the have-nots like that?
A couple of things I want to pull out there. You said real-time availability for the customers. Talk to your customers about it. Tell them what you're doing. That's one thing that we do really well. We talk to our customers. I reckon anyone that works with Beaumont People know that we do the 4-day week. And they know that when they get that automated reply on a Monday or a Tuesday or a Wednesday from the consultant that says, hey, thanks for reaching out to me on my 4-day week. If it's really urgent, call my mobile. They know that, hey, actually, it's not that urgent. I'm not going to call the mobile. So it's that real-time availability is, it's available. As in, I can't be hammered on a Friday when I'm having my 4-day week. As in, I still need to be
not anymore.
That one time. Yeah. But yeah, I have to be available for my clients if they really need me. If something blows up, I need to be available to support them. But it's that conversation. So that's one thing I want to pull out of what you just mentioned. If you're educating your clients on what you're doing internally, and then that opens the door to then educate them on them being able to do that as well. Yeah, let's go for it. But in terms of seniority, I don't know. I look at it and say that seems a bit unfair. If I can be if I look at it from an external perspective, saying you can only do this if you're a senior account manager, and it takes someone who's coming in at the entry level 3 years to get to a senior account manager, but then you hire a senior account manager in. I don't know. That looks a bit unfair. You know what I mean?
No, that's a really good point. It's I think it would create real conflict at some point,
and retention would be gone. Let me be honest, I really think that would actually create an unfair us and them scenario, and that's not what 4-day week's about. 4-day week is actually about increasing productivity, increasing mindfulness, increasing connection to work, and increasing connection to family. That's actually what it's about. The amount I didn't know that my husband was really unhappy that when I was at my last job because I was away so often. Yeah. All right. So now I'm working at Beaumont, and I work 3 days. I work 4 days a week, and we spend 3 days a week together. He is the happiest guy. He's the happiest guy.
I think you're going to say that. I think it's
a little bit too much.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm still scared because during COVID, my wife turned to me one day and said, "You're always here," and that still hurts. But not the case.
He hates the sound of my voice. I'll tell you that.
No, look, I think you're right. But it's worth stress testing that. So just running through the thinking. I do think you're absolutely right. I think communicating with your customers is key. You are going to get real-time emergencies, so making yourself available. And I think maybe that's part of the 4-day working week is. It's not that you're not available, it's that you don't have to be checked in. Yeah. You are just kind of there for emergencies. You're right. It's not necessarily a party day. That's annual leave. That's different. You sort that out. But you're... So we've actually...
But you can't take annual leave and 4-day week same week, just so you know.
Oh, really?
Yeah. No, if you're going to take 4-day week and annual leave, they both have to be annual leave because that then... removes that productivity.
See, we had that sort of stuff as well for Lightwire Day. It's I'm going to take day 1 as Lightwire Day, day 2 is annual leave. You
can't buddy them up. If there's a public holiday, you can't have it then either. Okay. So if there's a public holiday in the same week, you can't have 4-day week then. There's a bit more to it than, I guess we've gone very surface level, and I'd be happy to come back and have a full discussion around 4-day week. But
no, look, it's just that part's the interesting part where it's okay, so there's a knowledge base internally. There's, very clear expectations, good comms internally and externally. But yeah, that's super interesting. I think the part that still gets me is so you guys probably have really strong relationships at a certain level within your clients. You have 1 or 2 key contacts who are the decision makers across a few hundred entities, whatever it might be. We've got probably up to 100 people inside a single organization that will call us if shit hits the fan, and they have no idea what's going on. The key thing for us would be most of them are calling a single number, and that would go through a support team. Our key challenge would be to ensure there's always enough capacity on that team. If someone's, we've got a couple of people on their 4-day working week day off, and then we've had 2 people calling sick, and we've got someone on annual leave, it's like, oh God. And that just comes back to what you said about it's not an entitlement, it's a benefit. We have to think, can we do this? If someone calls in sick, what happens then? Do we have the right to go, hey, you actually can't? I don't know.
Yeah, you do. You do, absolutely. I again, not an entitlement, it's a benefit.
Yeah.
And if your colleague's crook and there's only 2 level 1s in the organization, I'm sorry, you can't have your 4-day work week today.
Yeah,
you can have it later in the week.
Yeah.
When they're well.
Yeah.
But if it gets to the end of the week and they're still crook, like, sorry, can't bank that.
Yeah. See, and this is it. So it's just got to be a really good conversation and flexibility on both sides. The company's given the flexibility that this is even a thing. We're even having this conversation. They need to be flexible and go, cool, I can work with the business to make sure that it's working for both parties. It can't be one-sided.
Yeah.
That's cool. All right, let's park there. That was really good. Thank you. The last thing actually I've got my note here is just, we speak to a lot of people in MSPs. MSPs are our clients at Lightwire. It can be a really stressful place to work at times. And you mentioned to me in a past conversation that particularly in support roles, and even in roles where you get things escalated to, most of the conversations you're having are kind of negative. They're, hey, this thing's broken. This isn't working as expected. The project's over time. Why'd I get charged this? Whatever it is. What are some of the best ways you think MSPs can offset that type of repeated encounter or that type of conversation, or those types of conversations through workplace practices, through cultural efforts, etc.?
Couple of things that I think we could do. First of all, we could be calling our clients. All right. So as an MSP, instead of just waiting for the call to come in, I know we're busy because we've got lots of calls coming in, but we could also be calling our clients and actually just doing a check-in. I know we do it once a month when we do that sort of look at all our tickets and say, this is what we've done through. With the CTO kind of sits there and said, look, this is where we're at. But if we're proactively on the front foot to give them a call every day and say, hey, just want to check in. I know that we had these few issues last week. How's everything going? It'll just give them another contact point to soften the blow, that they don't feel that they're actually just always calling you for a negative thing. Because although we feel like we're getting called every single time from a client just when things are burning down, they also feel that they're only calling you as the fireman. Like, call the fireman, call the fire brigade, they're going to fix it. And you don't have to be nice to them because they're actually a resource to us. Like, I really do think that we need to partner more as an MSP, or in the MSP space, we need to partner more with our clients and really be a little bit more strategic and offer a little bit more than just a service that is a help desk. Like, offer them some value adds. Like, for example, if you see something online that you think your client might like, okay, so I'm running a stress and burnout webinar in a couple of weeks. Brendan, your team might really enjoy this. Like, I'm going to send you the link. It's on my LinkedIn. I'm going to shoot it over to you, and if your team would like to come along, come and have a listen. Like, that's just something additive that I can provide to you. That's not to do with me actually fixing your ticket, not connecting your bloody printer to your computer or your iPad's not working. Add more value, partner more. That's one thing.
Transactional kind of thing.
Transactional relationships are dying. Transactional relationships mean that the client can move away from you anytime. They're not sticky anymore. If they're only using you as a help desk, they're not sticky to you. But if you are providing added value to that client, whether it be, it could be anything from emotional conversation, it could be just support with their internal team. Could be strategic direction, helping them with their IT strategy. All those things will create a more sticky relationship between the MSP and the client, and it'll mean that they don't want to walk away from you. It'll no longer become about money. It won't be what your cost per seat is versus what the other MSP's cost per seat is. It'll be cool. Actually, I really value the relationship I have with Brendan or the other MSP. I really value them.
I've never heard that sentence, but that's fine. The thing for me there is you just made me think that if we were using, say, the stats from Zendesk and we're going the top 3 customers with employees who are ringing our desk last month were X, I'm going to ring our key contact at that business and just go, hey, how's the experience? That would be the kind of thing that would certainly mean that the interactions with the person they're calling probably going to be more positive. It might have been that there wasn't a big issue after all, but it's still good to check in, thanks, or there was, and you proactively address that rather than letting them silently fume. Something on that, actually, we've found as well that most people, particularly in the consumer space that we have, and this may not translate to business, but the vast majority will suffer in silence until they cancel their service rather than ever lodge a support ticket, which I find really, really interesting. So to your point, if you're proactively reaching out based off whatever insights you have, you're going to uncover conversations that they may never surface with you.
Yeah, absolutely. What's the account manager doing? My question.
Yeah.
The account manager is not calling those people that haven't called. The account manager is not doing their job. And that's a very broad statement. I want to be very clear with that. It's a broad statement. But as someone that is in a relationship-driven industry where it is actually like the adding value component is one thing, but continuing that communication is another component. And if you're not picking up the phone and calling them, then you're not going to know what's going on in that consumer or business as well.
So from an employer space, and we'll end on this one, just if your staff are likely to have a lot of conversations that are difficult, moving away from what you can do with the customer, but what you can do with your staff, any key ideas as to, how you can just make them, just offset that unpleasantness from at times.
Cool. I with our staff, one thing I do is we actually get together and we call it like a relationship building club where everyone gets together and we actually share what's going on. Like, as in, what were the key challenges? Like, what's the biggest, like, who called you and yelled at you this week, basically? We don't get that often, but there are some difficult conversations where maybe a candidate has done a wrong thing and the staff member didn't know what to say. So they said, I'm going to have to give you a call back. But we give them an opportunity to just air that information in a really public space where we can all just add value and say, cool, I've had that happen as well. Just know you're not alone. If we could just create that on the MSP floor, so level ones, they get a phone and go, God, that was a really tough conversation. Who's available? Let's have a quick chat. Whether there's a breakout room to pop into and go, God, this happened, debrief. They're going to feel more valued, whether that's with the manager or whether it's with just a colleague. Like, that'll help with the morale.
For sure.
But no one wants to be yelled at and then be told just get back on the next phone call. We want to have that minute to walk around, de-stress, come back to the job.
Yeah. I also think if you've got anyone being too rude, then they're not the kind of customer you want. But
bye.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, it sounds like you guys are nailing that whole 5 dysfunctions, vulnerability and accountability and buy-in, all that sort of stuff. So go you guys. That light just went off, Romain, which I think may mean it's time for us to wrap up and get out of here. So we'll, so we can wrap up. But Dean, thank you very much for coming in, giving us all of your insights. I will follow up at some point and make you tell us all about the 4-day working week trial with some sort of anonymized data that your customers are cool with you sharing. But thank you very much for coming in.
No, thanks for having me. Love it.